Brunswick is sacred land for football in New Jersey. Retired two-time Super Bowl champ with the Saints and Patriots, and former Giants captain Jonathan Casillas has returned to his alma mater to host a free linebacker and lineman clinic for high school athletes in the surrounding area.
But then after I went undrafted, that was hard. They're telling me that I'm not good enough to play in the league. And I literally said this: I'm gonna take somebody's effing job.
Isn't that Jonathan Casillas trying to win the starting job at one of the outside backer positions, getting credit for the sack here?
There was unwavering belief in myself.
Intercepted by Casillas. Nearly had one the last time, gets it this time. Casillas inside the 15 and knocked out of bounds there.
And she was like, you know, all you ever needed was an opportunity and somebody's gonna give you.
Yeah, so leading in to like making decisions in college, what were the moments that crafted you as a man?
I think a moment that sticks out in my mind, I was a three-sport athlete. My first year playing football was my freshman year. I didn't run track to my last 2 years. But at this point, I'm a sophomore, my second year playing football. I earned a starting job. I was starting varsity, playing very well with a very talented group. All-American, like a couple All-State players. I think on that squad, it was 8 or 9 Division I players over the span of 3 years. So we were a talented group. I broke my arm in the semifinal game, and we lost in the state championship game. And the older guys, you know, I'm a sophomore, I'm 16 years old. They told me, they were like, yo, like, we needed you in that championship game. You know, and that was the first time that I realized, like, I actually have potential in this sport. And it just kind of switched to just a switch in my head to where, like, I wanted to do more and be available and play well and do all of this, not for me, for my teammates. Like, everything else, I think before that, because I played basketball, I was focused on my development and my success and all of those things. And that was the first time, like, I was like, I want to be out there not just for me because I want to be out there and I love the game, I love the sport, I like to hit, I like to make plays, but for my teammates because they're relying on me, they're depending on me, and I feel like if I show up, I'm healthy, I can contribute to a win in every single situation, in any sport, in anything. And that was kind of the first time that I realized, like, my impact in this team game.
So tell me more, or like name specifically the values that separated you going into becoming a college athlete.
Well, I just had this work ethic, bro, and then I had this competitive nature, and I didn't realize this till like maybe 4 or 5 years ago from this day, where I was at the Jersey Shore. I saw a guy that I played basketball with from the 6th grade on throughout high school. His name is Derek Gamble, AKA Zeke. And I've been kind of telling this story to kids about Zeke. And it just came, when I saw him, I was with my daughter, he was with his, I haven't seen him in like 15 years. I don't, you know, I haven't talked to him, I didn't even know. But when I saw him, it just brought back so many memories. And the first thing I thought of, like, I want to thank him. And I went up to him, I'm like, yo, I just want to thank you. He was so confused. He was like, what are you talking about? I said, because when I was in the 6th grade, I was a new student from here, Jersey City, to New Brunswick. My first year, maybe my first 2 weeks at school, we're playing basketball outside, like the 6th graders. And I'm hooping, Zeke was there. Mind you, I'm new here. And I heard one of the girls, I overheard a girl say to the teacher, like, man, Jay, like, I think he's the best 6th grader, like, in the school. And I heard him say, no, he's not better than Zeke. That sent me to another realm. Like, I was like, what? Like, it just, like, hit a switch again, like this switched, and I'm just like, no one will ever say that ever again. And I'm gonna do everything in my power to make sure no one says anybody, let alone Zeke, is better than me at something, at basketball, at whatever the case is. So I had this secret competition with Zeke. Mind you, Zeke was a great friend of mine. He was my teammate for like 7 years in basketball. But I had this secret competition with him that, because he was a good player, that it just drove me, it pushed me. And like, I wanted to destroy Zeke. Mind you, he's my teammate. But it happened on every level after that. When I got to college, they brought in 5 linebackers, right? I was the lowest rated linebacker. I had the longest career out of all of those guys in the NFL. I had the most stats. I was the fastest linebacker. Like, I wanted to outwork every one of those 4 or 5-star guys. My roommate was DeAndre Levy. He played in the league for a long time, but like, even that dynamic, he had potential that was like hitting because he didn't say nothing to nobody. But even that, like, I was like, yo, this dude, like, he can play. Like, the way he takes on fullbacks, like, I need, you know what I mean? So I start looking at my competition, and like, I would literally, like I said, keep your enemies close. Like, I was, on every team I've ever played for, I was best friends with my #1 competition. And I think it's from Zeke. Like, and I tell kids, it's like, you have to embrace the competition. When you get, you know how it is, when you leave high school, it gets harder, it gets way more competitive. Of course, the next level after that is professional level. It gets exponentially harder. The competition is the elite. There's no better, there's no higher, right? For me, you gotta be able to embrace that. You can be nervous, you can be a little scared of it, but you have to be able to embrace it. You have to be able to thrive with it. So I say to the kids, make friends with your competition. You know, make sure you keep it close. Make sure you understand it. You know how it works. You know how it thinks. You know what it can do to you. The Zeke, that's DeAndre Levy, that's Shane Carter, that's Jonathan Vilma, right? That's Levante David, that's Jamie Collins. Like, everywhere I went, my good friends on the team was my competition. And maybe it's from Zeke, maybe, I don't know, but like, for me, that's the situation I thrive in. You think he's better than me? Okay, cool. Yeah, he's my friend. We're going to go eat tonight. But I'm going to make sure he doesn't play. And we could be best friends, but he's not going to play. If it's my duty, I want him to play next to me. If we got to play the same spot, he's not going to play. And we're going to be cool. I'm going to say hi to his mama. He's going to say hi to my mama. But like, I'm going to beat this dude out because that's what competition is. And for me, I took that mindset and it just translated to other parts of my life. You know, and I love to learn from people that I'm competitive with. You know, I love that. You know, that's something that I feel like has blossomed me not only as an athlete, but as a person.
Taking that mindset and having to make a decision to go from the Northeast to the Midwest, a completely different place. What helped you make that decision?
Well, it was different because when I got to Wisconsin, it was during like the worst time of the year to take a visit to that part of the United States. It was like, it was cold as balls, bro. It was so cold. When I got to Wisconsin, it was like -3 degrees with like a -5 wind chill. It was the coldest like I've ever felt. During finals, so nobody's really going out. It wasn't no game. Like, it was nothing going on. Like, literally the worst weekend to visit a so-called poppin' campus. But when I got there, I didn't need to see how poppin' it was. I just felt like it was the place for me to be. You know, I think it was, you know, Coach Alvarez was, you know, he was the head coach at the time. Brian White was my recruiter. It just felt like this is where I need to be at. You know, I need to go and to be able to play at the big house and, you know, Ohio Stadium. I don't know if that's the Ohio State Stadium called, but, you know, those big arenas on this level. And not to take away from any of the other visits that I took, but it just felt like this is where I need to be at. The red, you know, my red's my favorite color. Like, that had a little bit to do with it, I think. They had a great engineering program. I was doing engineering. And I've never felt like I needed to be somewhere until I got to Wisconsin. You know what I mean? Like, the visits were all just trying to, like, exploratory, trying to figure out. And I ask a lot of questions, so I'm always asking questions. When I got to Wisconsin, as soon as I got to the campus and the stadium, and I was just like, yeah, like, this feels like this is it. Like, I didn't even take the tour yet. It just felt like it. I don't, you know, it didn't work out 100% the way at the end, you know, how I wanted it to. But I had a great time at Wisconsin. I think it was a great decision for me to go there. And, I wouldn't change it for anything.
How did you have the mentality to overcome that late injury as you were prepping for the NFL draft and as you were becoming a young NFL player?
That was difficult. Draft day was very difficult for me. I call it the longest, hardest, happiest, most difficult, saddest, angriest, most jubilant day. It was just so many emotions for a person that, I played 3 years as a starter for the, Wisconsin Badgers in the Big Ten. My numbers were really good. I was going to test very well. Was going to run really well. All of those things, I already knew. And they had me slated to be a 2nd to 4th round draft pick. And then the day of the draft, man, nobody called me until the 5th round. And I was already what is happening here? And I was so confused. And it hurt. It hurt. It hurt that, this is the first time I ever felt all of the work I did, and I always felt man, the work that I've done, man, it got me to this point. And I felt all of the work that I'd done up to this point, as a man, the college stuff, the high school, overcoming injuries, playing through injuries, what I did this year, all of that stuff was for nothing. Because I'm not good enough. They're telling me that I'm not good enough to play in the league. And I had a little bit of a weak moment, was just emotion being let out. I went upstairs in my house and cried for about 2-3 minutes. My mom came up there, and my mom's always the person that tells me what I need to hear when I need to hear it. And she was like, all you ever needed was an opportunity, and somebody's gonna give you one. And for some reason, those words was all I needed to hear. I wiped the tears off my eyes, went back downstairs, and I had a little bit more confidence. And then I finally got a phone call from New Orleans. And they actually said they were going to take me in the 5th round, and they didn't. Of course, they got Thomas Morstead, who's the punter for the Jets, who's my good friend. Went to his wedding, great friend of mine. Definitely wasn't jealous at all of him getting drafted in the 5th round. But then after I went undrafted, that was hard. DeAndre Levy, he was my roommate, he was supposed to get drafted after me. He went in the 3rd round. So there's no jealousy. There was more of my guy just went, so I should be going. Mind you, I said that at 11 a.m. The draft party ended at 9. The draft was over. You know what I mean? Everybody got picked. I was the only one left. So that mode has changed into where it wasn't it was just questioning, how did he go so early? And nobody even wanted me. I didn't understand that. Talked to my agent, and he basically said that, when people are calling up about you, they're basically pointing them all to DeAndre Levy. And that hurt, But it is what it is. After the draft, I was able to select the team. That's the great thing about going undrafted. The only good thing is that you actually get to pick, if there's multiple teams, you get to pick what you feel like is your best fit. When you get drafted, they pick you because they think you fit on their team. So I was able to do that, and I picked New Orleans. And literally, and this is kind of the summation of it all, my mini party that I had that survived at this point, after everybody left, it was my family, my mom, my brother, my sister, a couple of my close family members, a couple of close friends, came up, put our hands in together, and I literally said this: I'm going to take somebody's effing job. Because I knew that's what it was going to take. I knew that was what it was going to take as a drafted player. So as an undrafted player, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I just kind of had an idea of it. Undrafted guys, they don't make rosters. Not active rosters, maybe practice squad, but not active. I had no intentions on being on the practice squad ever. I wanted to be on an active roster from day one. And that's what I tried to do. And so when I broke it down, that mindset, that's what I went into the league with. I went into the league with, I have to take someone's job. Whether it's my friend, my competition, whoever it is. Because they only have a limited number of spots. If you got 90 camp bodies and you need to slim the number to 53, I know there's a lot of people that's going to be out of a job. And so for me, even during that season, or that preseason, They gave me number 62, terrible linebacker number. No one, I don't even think there's a linebacker in the league with the 60 number. And they were like, the older, even Vilma told me, he was like, yeah, I didn't think you were going to make the team because I wore number 62 and I came in hurt. I had that injury that I had. I still was playing like, I came in hurt. So no one gave me a shot. But I had this belief, like it wasn't no question that I was going to make the team. Like I never doubted it. Besides the day that I actually made the team, I'll tell you about that. But there was no question about if I was going to make the team or not. They even asked me, they started getting rid of some people, that first round of cuts. This is when they used to do rounds of cuts. And the equipment people came up to me, they was like, there's a couple numbers that opened up, a 90s number and another, no 50s numbers. It was a 90 number and a 40 number or something like that. And like, you want to change your number, you know? And I'm like, no. I was like, because if they want to keep me, they're going to have to get rid of one of these 50s, one of these veteran linebackers that they're going to have to pick me over them, and they're going to have to give up their number. And that's what happened. Of course, they had to release 4 or 5 linebackers or whatever for training camp. And the undrafted, confident Jersey City kid had no questions if I was going to make the team until the day I made the team.
So tell us how it was when you found out you made the team.
Man, like I was saying, it was such a long, nerve-wracking day. But when I found out, it was definitely emotional, happy, joyous tears. You know, I finally felt like, wow, like, you know, going undrafted was rough, but like, this is it. Like, I knew I was gonna do it. I had the utmost confidence in myself. But like I said, that day to make the team, that final cut day, it was very nerve-wracking. And then those same thoughts that played out the day of the draft kind of played out. You know, what if I wasn't good enough? And I barely played in preseason. But I had there was unwavering belief in myself. Unwavering. And, you know, if I didn't make that team, I would still have the confidence to like try to make another roster or something like that. You know, I had the utmost belief in myself, man. And I was very happy, very elated. But for me, it was like, all right, now you got to really show that you belong. For me, I knew I never arrived in the NFL. You know, like people think like, oh, I'm here, like I made it. Like, no, bruh. Like this is getting in there. That was the easy part. You know, and everything that I heard, especially that year, you know, like they're like, yo, now you gotta like show what you're about. You didn't show what you're about to make the team. You have to show what you're about to stay in this league. You know, and so the work ethic for me stayed the same, trying to be a more studious, a more verbal, studious person so they can hear me, that I know what I'm talking about. Because the trust for them was very low. You know, I'm a young, dumb rookie, as Greg Williams used to call me, and I was undrafted. I was the only rookie that wasn't a first-round draft pick that was playing for the Saints that year. You have Malcolm Jenkins, the #1 draft pick for the Saints, and then it was me. And everybody else was vets, you know? So it was rough, but at the same time, man, it was so good to have a rookie season like that, to where, you know, nobody really expects anything from me. And, you know, I just kind of just keep achieving and keep unlocking new doors and new levels. And that kind of just catapulted me to my career, man. So
how did you evaluate yourself to ensure, what were the markers you were trying to hit to go from young, dumb rookie to where you knew you could be? What were the markers that you were?
Well, I think early on it was, and this is just straight football stuff, it was my zone concepts. You know, pass drops in zone. I had no idea what I was doing. I can cover man to man. I was great at playing the run. You go to Wisconsin, you see a lot of run at Wisconsin. That's why all the Wisconsin linebackers do well in the league, especially against the run, because we see it run so much. But I played against the run very well, but it was the zone concepts for me. And then I just started, again, I found my Zeke, I found my competition. Scott Shanley, he played Will, and I just studied him, man. I watched him. I would ask him a lot of questions about where his eyes were at. What is he looking at? Like, you know, why didn't you go for this pump fake? Why were you there instead of here when you're supposed to be here? Like little questions like that, learning the details. But again, keeping that competition close to me. Like and at this point, I'm a student, you know, so like being a student to my competition. literally learning from the guy's, job I'm trying to take. And Scott, so he's a good friend of mine to this day. Even the following year when I won the starting job in preseason, they moved him to the other side, and I ended up playing Will. But it was from everything that I learned from him the year before. Like, I learned zone concepts from 3 people. It was one from Scott Shanley because he played Will linebacker. The other one was from Vilma because he was a lot smarter than everybody else. And then the other one was Drew Brees, because Drew Brees used to kill me at practice. He used to stare right at me in cover 2, knowing that he was throwing it my way. And Greg Williams used to beat over my head like, don't you know, you dumbass, that he's every time you're in cover 2 and they put Marcus Colston in the slot, he's staring right at you. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't know why he did that. I had no idea why. But when you play with a great quarterback like Drew Brees, you learn in practice how to defend certain things. But mind you, this is my introductory course to playing zone football, to playing zone coverage. I had no idea, and not taking anything away from Wisconsin, it was just a lot more simpler things. It wasn't really route concepts. It was more like landmark drops. So being baptized early and then embracing the competition and having them be kind of my guiding lights, that's how I was able to, I think, be a student of the game, learn the game, and knew that I had a learning curve. Physically, I was there. I can cover the good running backs. I can run with receivers. I was physical enough to take on guards. The mental part of the game, how to be a pro, scheduling, things out right, away from football, and then being a student of the game. Those are things I learned. And because I learned them early, I think I was the reason why I was able to stick around for so long.
So coming from that baptism, as you call it, moving as a veteran, you get more resources. What were some of the resources and tools that you leaned on as a veteran in these great teams that you were on to continue to improve and continue to have that same mentality throughout your career?
I think the whole finding my Zeke, having that competitive nature evolved to being, I want to be a part of a great team, a great family. Winning a Super Bowl in New Orleans my first year, I was exposed to what a great locker room looks like. And after I left New Orleans, I kind of wanted to be the catalyst and help replicate that in the other 3 teams that I played for. If, like for the Patriots, they have their lineage of Super Bowl wins, but it was 10 years before I got there. And I'm not saying I'm the catalyst. I'm just saying when I got there, they won a Super Bowl. That's a fact. But, I wanted to be not just the competitor, but a piece of this beautiful machine that's a whole bunch of competition, but I want to be a piece and help make other people better, not just be looking at myself to gain my competitive advantage. I learned that, and then, taking care of my body. I started getting a lot of nicks and bruises and neck and elbow and shoulder, and then fully starting to understand that when you leave the facility, you need to be doing everything you can to get your body back healthy. A game week is 7 days. Those first few days is rough, especially middle of the season. I'm beat up on Wednesday and we got full padded practice. So for me, learning how to take care of my body and how my body works throughout the season was crucial. And you need to learn that as a professional in any sport that you're doing. You got to learn how to take care of your body, because in any sport, we're talking about basketball is 82 games, baseball is 162 games, and football is 17. It's once a week, but the punishment that you put your body through, then you add on the preseason, you add on the playoffs, that's like 20-something weeks straight of football, of banging all day long. And you have to take care of your body, and you have to take care of your mental health as well. Those are the things I knew that if I mastered those things, that I could play for a while as long as I could mentally tolerate it.
So looking at the twilight of your career, moving into the post-football period, what was the plan that you had set out? And now, having succeeded at that plan, or succeeded generally, what did you not know? What changed? What was your plan then, and what surprised you?
So right after retired, you have those conversations with, you know, a lot of ex-NFL guys, recently retired guys that have been retired for a while, agents and, you know, people that you care about, you know, their opinions about. So I'm talking to everybody, and everybody kept saying the same thing. Find what you're passionate about, you know, and just go after that. And this is where I failed at trying to do that, because I don't know if I was just looking for the passion. I think I was trying to replicate the passion that I have for football. And it's impossible. Like, I can never replicate what football gave me in terms of the passion. Just, you can't do it. You know, there's nothing out there like that. There's nowhere, nobody's gonna pay you to hit somebody, you know, that's legal. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the 80,000 fans, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can't really replicate it. So I stopped trying to pursue my passion because I felt like I just kept running into dead end after dead end. And, you know, I just kind of started looking back at, like, what are you good at? You know, what can you do to help other people and also help yourself that you're good at? You know, I like to talk. You know, I'm not the best speaker. You know, I don't, grammatically, I'm not the best speaker. You know, I say the wrong words at times in sentences. But I'm very passionate when I speak because I only speak about things that I know. So I've kind of evolved to being not like a motivational speaker, just being more intentional about the things that I say, especially to the youth. So I love to talk to kids. Like 100 kids, that's cool. That's general. 50 kids, that's better. 25 kids, even better. I love, after the 100 kid group, that there's a group of 3 or 4 or 5 kids that come up to me. And now we have this very intimate conversation. There's no teachers, no principals, nobody's around. And now they're getting the authentic me. I have to be very PC when I'm talking to a group of 100 kids. Can't curse, can't do those things. When we come to those intimate sessions, you can see the lights just flick on in all of these kids. Because now they didn't want to ask a question in front of the group, but they have questions that they want answers from. And for me, I value that. And I don't give people advice. I just give people my perspective. You know, I don't say this what you should. No, I don't say that. There's some things like you need to have a schedule. Like some things you need, but like I'm just giving my perspective. You know, and I started to understand how powerful that was. Giving my perspective, especially to young kids that are trying to do things that I've done and really have no clue on what to do. So I think I'm really good at that. So I started doing that a lot. I like to talk, so I work with the Giants in WFAN. I do radio, I do broadcast stuff with them. Trying to be good at being a dad too. That's difficult, but definitely putting in thoughtful, intentional work at being a father as well. And I'm doing a whole bunch of other things as well too, but I don't think we got time for all that.
Tell me more about how you blend the authority that comes with playing NFL with what you just said, the intimate conversation, the perspective that you're sharing. How do you blend those two together to impact the community or to have those impacts on kids or people who need mentorship?
It's a cheat code, to be honest. You know, the platform, when they say NFL, like these kids, right? I'm talking about first, second graders. They don't, and I'm talking about in New Brunswick where there's like a huge Mexican demographic. These kids don't watch American football. If they're watching any football, it's football. They're watching soccer. But these kids are not even, some of them don't even know the NFL at all, right? Some of the kids do. And when they hear that I'm in the NFL, oh my God, they just light up. That's the initial thought process for these young kids. How I get them to actually like pay attention to me longer than 2 minutes, right? Is I'm connecting with each individual kid. You know, when I talk, I look at them in their eyes. I'm talking about when I'm reading a book. I could be reading a Dr. Seuss book. I could be reading my favorite book called Be Kind, right? And as I'm looking, I'm engaging with these kids and I'm trying to ask them questions so I can learn something And I'm not leaving here empty-handed, because doing the stuff with the kids is fine for me. But I want to learn from these kids too. Once they see that and they see me kind of just being locked in with that, they're like, man, this dude, he ain't this big old NFL player. Like, he cool, man. Like, and I feel like connecting with kids, because the first you say NFL, that you got their attention. Now, how do you keep their attention? And how do you keep them engaged so when after you leave, they don't just start going crazy again with the teacher, you know? And for me, I have this authoritarian, I think, figure because of the NFL and my stature too. I'm a taller than most regular human beings, especially children. So they look at me as this bigger than life type of person. But then when they speak to me, after they know me for a while, like I'm a very personable human being that you can come up to and ask those questions, and you don't have to be embarrassed, and I won't embarrass you, you know, and I keep that kind of personal relationship to these kids.
And then when you're advising high school students in particular, how are you advising them to tune in to the correct information but plug out all the noise?
And that's probably the most difficult thing for them, you know, and a kid recently asked me, like, how do you stay motivated? How do you stay, like, you know, with the adversity that happens, because adversity will come. And I think a simple knowing your why and why you're doing what you're doing, why do you want to be great at this, and kind of just always relaying on that, like relying on that, going back to that, and keeping it in your forefront, like keeping it in your mind to like, this is why I'm doing this. In life, the great thing about life is that there's choices that you make every day, you know, and it's not so black and white. It's not so bilateral where it's like yes or no. There's always a right or wrong. There's a lot of gray there, but you get to make choices. And the great thing about kids is like, it's not always about making the right choices, because you don't know all the right choices to make, you know. So my thing is when you do make choices, analyze them, go over them. What could you have done better? You know, was this a good choice that I made? You know, I always find myself when I get into a situation with a relationship, or, you know, I didn't perform well, whatever the case is, I don't look at outside factors. I look at myself first. I look at what could I have done better, considering the outside factors. You know, rain, snow, it might cause delays. How do I not be late on a day it snows? It's an easy excuse to use the snow, but being proactive about, hey, it's snowing, maybe I should leave 30 minutes earlier. So having that happen to you once should be enough. So it was a bad choice to leave, but because you learned it now, from the future you'll be good. So I don't want kids to avoid bad choices, because that's how you learn. You know, so I would say just learn from your mistakes. Learn from the losses and your failures, because there's really no way to avoid it. And when you're going in that direction, failure is right around the next horizon. Like, it's coming soon. What do you do after? What do you do when you fail? What do you do when you lose? What do you do when you literally fall on your face? Do you get back up and do you keep pushing, or do you fall? Like, those are things that I talk about, is being the person that always wins, even if they lose, right? I say wins and lessons. I can't never lose, because I only learn. I never lose. The only time you lose is when you don't get up. The only time you lose is when you don't continue. You know, recently I had a conversation with somebody. They were pursuing something like they've been doing since they were a child. Money's tight right now. The industry that they're in is a little tight. And they said they have an offer to do a job. And they was like, I would never forgive myself for that. And I said, why do people create plan Bs? People create plan Bs just in case plan A doesn't work. But like, you know, when you're chasing this success, there's going to be failure. When do you give up on plan A? You don't. You just figure out different ways to do plan A. That's it. If your plan is to get to the NFL and you're doing everything you can to get to the NFL, but you're 5'8", the chances are stacked up against you. But keep your plan A alive until plan A doesn't exist anymore. Don't be the reason that plan A because you gave up. Because at a certain point, you got to give up. At a certain point in time, you got to give up on the league, right? But don't do it when you're 16, 17, 18, 19 years old if this is your dreams and your goals. You need to do everything you can to get your plan A accomplished. You need to do everything because there's different ways to get to your plan A. And if you're not being resourceful enough, then how will you ever make it to any other plan B, C, if you've given up on plan A? Unless it's like in front of you, they cut your legs off and say you can't walk anymore. Maybe you give up on walking then, but still, they got orthotics, they got, they put legs on you. Like what I'm saying is that there's choices that need to be made, good choices, bad choices, but there's life that has to happen. And those come out of good choices and they come out of bad choices. They come out of wins and they come out of failures. And you grow more in your failures. You grow more with your bad decisions. So I don't want to discourage kids from making bad decisions. Just make a conscious decision, weigh the goods and pros and cons, the good and bad, and then make an educated decision, and then maybe reflect on the decision. But all in all, I don't want to stop anybody from making a bad decision. Because your bad decision, one bad decision away to making it to be a politician, an astronaut, a lawyer, whatever the case is. You're one bad decision away and one bad decision away from being in jail. But that's a whole nother story in itself.
So, given that perspective, and then also given the football perspective, like the real football stuff that you talked about in terms of zone coverage, how do you hope that, or what do you want to impart upon younger players who want to improve and want to get better? What would you impart upon them in how to improve their game and how to utilize the new technology that is out there and the new opportunities that are out there?
I would say first off, be a student of the game. That's number one. If you're not a student yet, like you don't have to be of the game, but if you don't, like if you didn't do well in school or you finesse your way through school, you can't finesse your way in the NFL, bro. You can't. They're gonna know that you're not reading your playbook because of how you play. You have to be a student of the game. I think that's number one. In the new technology stuff, I would say just try to fully immerse yourself in it when you're not in football. Like when you step away, like if you're not familiar with certain technology, let's say your iPad, and they have certain things in there, don't figure it out when you're in the building. Figure it out when you're home.
So now the NFL has given all these people iPads, technology. How can you use that early on in your career to advance you and get you to that spot that you made it to where you're taking people's jobs?
It's interesting because, I don't really know exactly the technology that's going on, like the stuff that Jaden Daniels is using and all of that. I don't know anything about it. But for me, however you can get your competitive advantage, and now you can do it at home. You don't got to go to the gym. You don't got to do anything extra outside of your house. You can do it in your house with the iPad technology and all of the AI stuff that they got. Then do it. Why not? If there's a person like Jaden Daniels who you're going to play, like he has an advantage because he's using it, see what works for you. I don't know, certain people learn things certain ways. It may not work for everybody, but why not? It may streamline information to you a lot more simple and efficiently. You might be able to get visual reps a lot more consistently, and that's what we all want. We all understand that the more reps make you better. Every athlete understands that. What if you get 1,000 reps when you go home? That can change the game for people. I don't know exactly what Jaden Daniels is doing. It sounds like he's doing something like that. He's taking football home and putting himself on the field again, which is impossible. Football is the only sport you can't play with a group of 3 or 4 people. You got to have a group of people. You got to have a field. There's certain parameters that you have to play football. I think they're allowing people to simulate football away from the sport, and I think that's going to create a lot of tremendous minds when it comes to performance on the field.